Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello, everybody at home, and welcome to Houselights, House of Emmerich, Roland Emmerich specifically. And tonight we are talking about 1996's Independence Day. And you listeners might be asking yourself, Tristan, John, Darren, why on earth didn't you do this a week ago? Well, we didn't plan on it being this close, and we were off by one friggin' week to have this released on actual Independence Day, because we normally release on Thursdays. July 4th was on a Thursday this year. We screwed the pooch, folks, but you're still going to enjoy it regardless. I am your co-host, Tristan Riddell, and with me, as always, is John Mills and Darren Moser themselves. Guys, Independence Day. I mean, like, for those of you who weren't alive when this came to theaters, you have no idea how much hype was behind this movie. Darren, did you get to see this in the theater?
I did. I was a wee lad, almost 13, and so thus, PG-13. I can see it. But yeah, I was looking at. I think this was meant to come out on the 4th, obviously, but they actually released it like a couple days early because the hype was so big. They're like, fine, we'll give it to you. Like, I remember the ID4 posters and being like, what the heck is that? I remember the poster with the ships, or the shot of the I think there was also one which it was either New York or DC. I can't remember, but it was like
it was New York. It was gigantic. Yeah.
And and you just saw it and you're like, what is going on? And it was the big budget. We're throwing all the money at it. Sci-fi alien invasion movie that we all didn't know we wanted, but we did want. Like, after they told us what we were going to be getting. But yeah, I remember the hype. Like, we're just a hair before the hype of like Phantom Menace, which is a whole nother level. But this was like close to it for an individual property that wasn't around before. It's incredible what this reached. But yes, I do remember seeing this in theaters. I probably saw it. I mean, guys, tickets were cheap back then in 1996. They just were. It's probably $8, maybe $10.
Max. Oh, it would have been less than $8 or $10.
Not even that.
Not even. No. I can't even remember.
Like DC metro area, it was a shock when in 1999 they raised the ticket price at the movie theater I saw Phantom Menace at. Like, the day they sold tickets, they were like, oh, by the way, ticket prices are going up to, I think they raised it to like $8.25.
Okay.
And that was in 99. So tickets in my area would have been around $6. Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
$6 was around that time in where I'm from, in Central Illinois in the Midwest. Yeah. Like, it was probably even cheaper than that, honestly, at that point.
So California, you could probably $7,
Yeah, you could go multiple times. It was easy.
You could go. It was very easy.
Movies used to be cheap,
so
kids.
Much
That's
money.
What we're saying.
That's what we're saying.
Cheap night. Yes.
Back in my day. John, how about you? I mean, clearly you saw this in the theater.
Yeah, this was one of those ones where it was just a foregone conclusion. It was, I mean, to borrow the term, I'm sure I've heard it somewhere, water cooler movie. You had to go see it so that you could talk about it. And everybody was just like, okay, fine, let's just tear the Band-Aid off. Let's just go see it. I remember a fair amount of skepticism from myself because, I remembered Universal Soldier. And I remembered Stargate, and I had fond memories of Stargate, like we discussed. But like they always be like, for the director of Universal Soldier, I was like, hold on, champ, let's not bring that one in here.
Maybe we don't lead with that, folks.
Yeah, maybe that's a little asterisk after you say the director of Stargate. But I mean, Will Smith, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, huge. Like he wasn't
hot,
but he wasn't a marquee movie star at that point. Like he was. And everybody, Jeff Goldblum had just been in Jurassic Park 3 years previous. So there's a fair amount of hype. There's all of this stuff. You got to go see it. It was an event movie. It was literally like it didn't matter whether it was good or not. You had to go see it so that you could talk about it.
I'm kind of curious what went up against it because I really feel bad for whatever came out that weekend besides this movie, because I'm sure it just got smushed.
I don't think they even made an attempt at counter programming, honestly, because the multiplex scene was a little bit different back then too.
That's true.
And so I think that this was just one of those ones where it was like people just got out of the way. They just weren't going to bother trying to go up against it. At least that's my recollection of it. I mean, it's sort of like, I remember young Einstein coming out around the time of the original Batman in 1989.
You could do something that's like very different, like a chick flick or something that's like gonna try to go for a totally different crowd. But anything, like you said, it's a water cooler movie. Everybody wanted to talk about it. Or if you missed it that first weekend, you were seeing it the second weekend because everybody was talking about it.
Yeah, it definitely had a lot of momentum behind it. It was an event movie. And I mean, honestly, yes, the marketing, I think I was saying this during Stargate last week, like everything around Emmerich's movies in the 90s pointed us toward where the industry was headed. And the idea that the marketing push, it didn't matter whether the movie was good. All that mattered was that it was coming out and you were going to go see it. And
we're going to talk more about that next week with Godzilla.
Oh, will we ever? But I mean, the thing is, really hat tip to Jurassic Park, because Jurassic Park became that huge event. And then, of course, the marketers are going to look at that and be like, how can we make that happen again? And that it's served up to you on a plate here. You have a big music star. You have a known entity with Jeff Goldblum. You have names in the cast. You have aliens, effects, disaster movie. People love disaster movies. Yeah, the table was set for this thing.
I was 10 when this came out, and I was floored. I totally got captured into the hype. I was like, this is the movie of the summer. I'm going to define my summer by this movie. And every year, like my birthday is the day after Independence Day. And so every year, my family and I would go see a movie, on my birthday or on July 4th. And we were like, well, like they didn't even have to ask me what movie we were going to see this summer. It was like, we're going to see Independence Day. And I have such vivid memories of seeing this in the theater. I know exactly what theater I went to, what row I was in, and the block lettering at the beginning that kind of broke up and then, zooms past the camera and you hear the sound in the surround sound. Like it really tested the surround sound. Both my dad and I looked at each other like, this is gonna be good. And it was the opening titles, man. It was the opening titles. And we were like, this is gonna be good. And we got it on home video. Yeah, my dad was one of the first people we knew to get surround sound installed in the basement. And we always popped in the opening of Independence Day on VHS to show off the surround sound to people who came and visited the house. It was in like the rumble of the ship, like when it approached the moon and everything like that. It tested the bait. Like it was our tester VHS. Like it was what we put in. I was so happy to be able to see this at 10 years old. And my wife I was watching this on Independence Day. And my wife said, like, I was like, oh, I love this when I saw this in the theater. She's like, how old are you? I was like, 10. She's like, you were allowed to watch this at 10? I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, it's totally tame. It's rated PG-13 for language, I think. Like, it's not even that violent.
I don't even recall the language too much. Like,
the language is actually pretty bad. Actually, like as I watched it, when she said something, I was like, oh wait, yeah, it's for a PG-13. There's no F words, but there's a lot of son of B's and GDs and SHITs and everything like that. Like,
see, I'm glad we don't have to bleep it when you spell out the word, but but like, like except for the dreaded S word, like all of those are things you could hear on primetime TV by that point. Like, granted, in more limited
couldn't see GD. You couldn't say GD on primetime TV at that point.
Okay, that's a fair. Yeah, at that point you couldn't. That's a good point. But I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, this is definitely an age thing because I was old enough that by the time this came out, you don't even notice that anymore. You're just like, whatever. I mean, keep it. This is 2 years after Pulp Fiction. It's like you want to talk about like the language barrier being kicked down with a popular movie. It's like I think sort of the landscape shifts a bit after that.
It's actually really funny that you mentioned that, because Dean Devlin pitched this script to 20th Century Fox and described it as War of the Worlds meets Pulp Fiction, which I'm not quite sure how that matches up, but the pitch obviously worked.
The thing is, my brain, I want to go to an AI generator and be like, put Jules and Vincent in Independence Day and give me a script for what this would look like if it were directed by Tarantino. That would be an interesting film, to say the least.
Now, John, I have a question for you. So
Yes.
I was 10 years old when I saw this in 1996. So I was a 90s kid, super excited to see Will Smith, Aliens, and everything like that. I mean, Will Smith helped define the 90s. His performance is very 90s.
Oh, yes.
You know, it's very of its time. I want to know what the younger generation of today thinks of Independence Day.
Oh, because I showed my daughter this movie for the first time. My oldest daughter, who is going into her senior year of high school, and she had never seen it before. And on Independence Day, I said, I have to watch this. This is podcast homework. You want to watch it with me, honey? And she said, yeah, sure. And I played it for her and we watched it. And this is definitely a movie that doesn't translate for the younger crowd the way it did for us in the 90s. Time has left its mark. And I think that the biggest hurdle that it has is just like Star Wars. The landscape changed so much afterward that you're measuring it against all of the things that came after, which found ways to refine the technique and to do the tricks better and to tighten the pace or tell things in a more compact fashion. And so I think that for the younger generation, it's basically, I get why you like that at the time, was sort of the vibe afterward. And I had to give her credit. She had a lot of very funny comments as well, because, I'm like Don Corleone. I indulge my children. And so, we would have a little commentary.
Can you give us an example of something that she commented on?
And this is a fair thing that I commented on as well, is when the alien ships come and attack the military base, for the amount of shots that they're firing and the amount of things we see blow up, we were both sitting there like, man, they're terrible shots.
I did notice that.
Their accuracy is awful.
It's like 1,000 shots and like 3 things blow up in front of us.
And it's like that's the sort of thing where, like, when you watch it, you're like, yeah, nowadays it would be a little bit more oomph to that. Like, you look even at Transformers, when Michael Bay basically does this scene with Transformers. And it's like you get the sense of like he blows a lot more stuff. I mean, it's Michael Bay, but that sort of thing, and she offers a little commentary with that. She felt that Bill Pullman as the president was, to say that he didn't impress her is an understatement. She felt that he was completely pointless. She basically asked a couple of times, what is even his point? Why is he there? Like, she's like, I'm annoyed by him more than motivated by him. But it's speech at the end with that, I think you phrase it this way, the furious salute, Tristan.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. How the furious and emotional salute.
Yes. That drew a chuckle. And which is fair.
Where she chuckles, I got literal goosebumps. Okay, so
I'll say that back in 1996, this is definitely my child, because back in 96, I might have chuckled a little bit too, and be like, okay, guys, all right, that's shotgun.
Oh my god, it's so funny. It's so funny that you say that, because like as I'm watching this, like my wife's walking around, she's doing whatever she's doing, and so she comes in and she goes to the closet while the movie's going on, and we're getting to that scene. We're getting to the scene with the speech. And I was like, "Hey, baby, you wanna take a break with what you're doing and witness one of the greatest cinematic speeches of all time?" She's like, "Oh, I've seen it." I was like, "I know, but
setting up too much."
And I was like, "No, baby. I know you've seen it, but you can't just walk around while this is going on. You have to sit and observe." And And so like she's watching it, and she ends up just watching me watch the speech. And I mean this. I got literal chills on my arms when the speech was going on. And when the dude, did that furious salute, I was like, hell yeah, that's right. That's right. I get so transported with this movie. And I am so glad that you shared what your daughter thought of this movie, because I cannot look back at this objectively. It's so hard to look at and I understand that. I can't. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, this is a movie that's sublime and it stands the test of time. My memories of it, my nostalgia of it, definitely stand the test of time. Darren, how did you feel going back and watching this?
Well, I mean, it wasn't a long respite because we watch this almost every 4th of July. It's a, I haven't watched it with my kids yet, but my wife and I will watch it pretty much every 4th of July, because it's what you put on. Like, we'll watch, certain movies at Christmas time and certain movies at Thanksgiving, but this one is 4th of July. And it maybe that keeps it from fading in the nostalgia way. Like, I don't think about being 13 and watching this. It's more just like, oh, this is just it's a popcorn movie. It's like you said, it's a great surround sound movie. Like, it just blows away, I think it won for best sound,
as it should.
But I mean, I think the most dated aspect of it is, again, it's always going to be the technology. Like, his laptop looks like, utter trash because it's 1996, and it's like Mission Impossible, where they're just trying to like dial up everything, and it just looks, because that's what it is. That's what cell phones look like. That's what technology looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like communicating with hosts, like type, and I'm like, oh man, like, what, you're throwing your 7.5 megahertz at it and you're hoping it works. But
thank goodness that Mac OS integrated into that alien technology. Thank goodness that they use the same system.
Well, if they had been 64-bit instead of 32, we would have all died. It would have just been,
we wouldn't be speaking right now.
I will say that those of us who were older at the time and knew a thing or two about computers, we did have a little chuckle. Like, we looked the other way. Like, we get it and everything like that. But like,
totally.
We kind of like walked out. We were like, yeah, okay, good. Yeah, that's not, because we would encounter people. And of course, being nerds, you have to be like, well, that wouldn't actually work. Like, you got to be that way. I think in headcanon land, you can be like, he was so brilliant.
All you need is communicating with host. Problem. So, it's communicating with host.
He had done the necessary work to integrate his code because they were using our satellites or something like that.
That's true. He did have a lot of knowledge of the satellite signal. He discovered the signal. They established he's really smart. Like, they built it up. It wasn't like, and then this technician, Bob, who we've never met, is going to go on the spaceship with you because he has a computer. It's like, no, it's going to be the guy we know.
Although I will say that my daughter did bring up a great point, where, they fly the old ship back, which implies that the aliens have made no technological advancement since that ship crashed, obviously. But
50s to now, that's not.
But ships, they go setting aside the upgrade sort of thing and all of that. And it's like, you could say that those aliens probably had hit a stasis point in their technology, specifically because all they did was they went around and they took stuff and everything. Like, that's fine.
Well, and I always felt that ship was like, Frank came from this mothership, but just went on a little bit ahead, because it's only 50s to 90s. That's not that many years.
But ships still have unique identifiers, and she was the one that sat there. She's like, "Shouldn't that ship's unique identifier?" I was like, "Oh yeah, honey, yeah, you went there. Good. You're thinking it through here. That's fine. Just brush past that." She was like, "Okay."
Yeah, there's a few.
Bob,
there's a few.
The 200 series just came back, and we're in like the thousands. Like, what is this ship doing here? Yeah.
To be fair, they did lock it down immediately and didn't let it go anywhere.
True.
So during that time, The guy could have been calling up his supervisor. The supervisor's on a break.
We saw the space cubicles, guys. We saw them in the ship. They're just doing their job. The guy's sitting.
Yeah.
A ship comes up. He's just like, da da da. Oh, look, a ship. Like the thousands of other ships that I see every day. I don't get paid to ask questions, Space Bob.
It's like, you don't do the budget, Terry. I do. Okay?
Thank you. I was about to go there with the Star Wars Family Guy thing, where it's like, why not just shoot at it? Yes. Right. Yeah. There's a bureaucracy on the alien ship. It makes sense, actually.
Okay. So I want to ask you guys, a question. So in the 90s, in the marketing and everything like that, they really, like, John, you hit this perfectly. Like, Will Smith was huge. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, music career. Like, the guy helped define the 90s. I mean that. Like, people don't understand how much of a pillar Will Smith was in the 90s. And they really kind of built this up as like, this is a Will Smith movie. Like, Independence Day, Will Smith movie. Watching this again as an adult, because I hadn't watched this for a very long time, I don't feel like Will Smith is in it the most.
Mm-mm.
I feel like we get more Bill Pullman and Jeff Goldblum than we do Will Smith. Am I alone in that? Or what do you guys think? Like, who's the protagonist in this movie?
Well,
or is it just an ensemble cast?
Well, I was interested in talking about this, like we mentioned last week with Stargate, where Stargate is also kind of a mix between, Jack's story and Daniel's story. And obviously, they're interweave. But yeah, you're right. There's three guys, and they have very different, they only coalesce towards the end, of the movie as it checks off. But who is the protagonist? I would say, shooting from the hip, probably Jeff Goldblum, because his character affects the most change on the circumstances. And that's usually your protagonist, as opposed to, not that the others don't contribute. They really do. But he's the one that, like, if he was not there, things are massively different.
I think that his plot line affects the most
other
characters. The most other characters as well. The woman working in the White House, he had punched the president, so they had past interaction as well. And then you have these other characters that he interacts with. So I think that if I'm looking at it from a bare bones perspective, he's the quote unquote protagonist, but he's not a charismatic protagonist. And so that's why Will Smith steals the spotlight, because he's the charismatic figure in the film. And the fact that they come together at the end makes it feel much more like a co-billing instead of a top billing. But I understand why the marketers say, oh, no, Will Smith is our play in this one. Like, because he's got the one-liners. He's got "Welcome to Earth," right? That's your ad campaign right
versus
there.
"Time's Up."
Right.
Doesn't quite have the same kick.
And
speaking of which, he like one of his lines is, "I have got to get me one of these."
Yes.
Which
I saw that in so many ads.
So many ads. It was all over the place. Tons of people were saying it. Apparently, like, I was listening to an interview with him. He got a call from his kid's teacher. I think, I don't know which kid, maybe Jaden or something. I don't know. But he got a call from his kid's teacher at the time, like in 96 and 97, everything like that. Got a call from home saying, your son won't stop saying, I gotta get me one of these. You have to tell him to stop.
That's fair. I mean, Smith is he's so charismatic in this movie that go ahead and paint him as the protagonist, but Jeff Goldblum is it. I
think you guys are right, because like I kind of wanted to lean towards Bill Pullman just because I have such a huge soft spot for Bill Pullman. I ever since While You Were Sleeping,
he's great in that, isn't he?
I love me some Bill Pullman. Absolutely, I love that movie so much. But Jeff Goldblum, clearly, yes, absolutely. John, like Darren, you're both are absolutely right about what you said. Now, since we're talking about some of the actors, I want to talk about the performances before we kind of get into the directing. Since this is a director-based podcast and like where we see Roland Emmerich and everything like that, we got to talk about these performances because these are some really, really great people. We got Mary McDonnell, Judd Hirsch, Robert Loggia, Margaret Collin, Randy Quaid, Harvey Fierstein, Brent Spiner, Adam Baldwin, Vivica A. Fox.
James Reborn?
Is it Reborn? Reborn? I'm going to say Reborn.
I'll borrow the Gene Hackman line. He's great in everything. Like, that guy walks on screen and it's like, oh, this is going to be a good one.
I want to talk about his character. He's a fantastic actor. I really do like him, but his portrayal, that character, like, I know that we get that great Robert Loggia line where, like, Darren, can you say that Robert Loggia line for me that he says about American pilots?
Oh, where he's like, maybe you should told us that before we launched a campaign that cost the lives of hundreds of American pilots.
Bravo. I love it. Bravo.
So, okay. I know that the story needed to happen and we needed that reveal. So I know from a plot standpoint and a story standpoint that the Secretary of Defense needed to hold on to that little secret so we could have that big reveal of Area 51. Legitimately, this man needs to be tried for treason.
Right.
I'm not joking.
There's a timeout here. Because Area 51, like so many other things that my conspiracy theory loving heart is filled with, Area 51 was regarded as a conspiracy theory at this time. You don't understand. Area 51 was that thing where it's like, yeah, the crazy people believe in Area 51. Now, I knew Area 51. Everybody knew Area 51, but it was one of those, it was like the NSA, where it was like, oh, no such agency. And even though there were those of us who knew people who worked for the NSA or had dads who worked in the NSA didn't exist. It wasn't a thing. It didn't exist. Now, I won't go down the rabbit hole of, how S7 is the real site where things happen and all of that type of stuff. But like at the time, it was completely believable that Area 51 would have been so locked down that nobody would have been told about it except for like a handful of people. And what I wish they had done is teased out a little bit more about the fact, like a retort along the lines of like, yeah, well, Truman didn't even know about Fat Man and Little Boy, for Pete's sake. Like, there is a need to know basis for a lot of things. And I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but like in 96, the fact that they talked about Area 51 was like a little love tap to those of us who believed in Area 51. It was a first exposure for a lot of people at the time.
None of that counteracts what I said about him in this universe, in the reality of the movie. The fact that he knew that there was complementary
days.
Yeah, that there was complementary technology of the aliens who landed in Roswell in the 60s and was hovering over every major city. No.
Listen, having grown up in the DC metro area as well, it's completely like we just sort of shrug at those sorts of things. It's like, yeah, of course. It's compartmentalized. It's the whole thing. Like CIA doesn't talk to FBI and all of that type of stuff. I'm not saying you're wrong from an ethical or moral perspective. I'm saying that it's just one of those things where it's like they did enough research to know, yeah, that's just how it works.
Yeah, and also his character, like, I freaking hate when they make the Secretary of Defense a warmonger. Like, he's like, like the Secretary of Defense is always an idiotic warmonger who's just like, let's blast him with some IBMs. Let's do it. But then, of course, when they want to mount an offensive, he's like, this is stupid. This will never work. And like, he's the on the ground antagonist of the movie. And that's one big criticism I have of this, is that the Secretary of Defense is the on-the-ground antagonist for the movie, and he flip-flops depending on what the plot needs.
Again, I'll give it a little bit of an out saying, this is how your government works, and be comfortable with it. And this is just, like, seriously, like, again, being in the DC Metro, we're all like we didn't even notice it. Like, we was like, yeah, that's just what happens.
It's so true. Like, in the 90s at 10 years old, oh my gosh, like, you don't realize that Washington does not get the best and the brightest.
No. You know what? Before we go down that rabbit hole, though, I want to say that as a Star Trek fan at the time, seeing Brent Spiner walk on screen and get a non-data role it was so like my group of friends, when we saw him walk on screen, we were so thrilled. There was like a little mini cheer that went up. We were like, yay, Brent Spiner. I consider him such a scene stealer in this movie.
Now, Darren, what did you think about seeing Brent Spiner on screen in a non-Data role? What did you think about his role?
Oh, same as John. I mean, Data was like my favorite character from TNG, which had just gone, just retired off the air. So yeah, seeing him and acting, emoting, having long hair, it was like I almost didn't recognize him. I think it took like half a second because he's got glasses. It's like the Clark Kent effect where he looks so different that I almost didn't place him as the same actor. But no, I think Oaken is a great character. I love it. He just plays it like a tiny bit manic where he's like, yeah, they don't let us out very often. You're like, okay, so that's all you need to say. I totally understand everything about your character right now. Just the whole, once we get there with Area 51, it worked. I mean, it's beautiful sets, and I love just the extra plating that we put on the alien ship with the, emergency hash marks. Like that just feels like, oh yeah, we got to build, just glue it together. Just cover that hole with some, titanium. Maybe it'll make it in space. Maybe it won't. Who knows? But,
they clearly just use Bondo or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Gorilla glue. That's
but again, to that part of the movie, I like how, and I've said this many times with movies, especially with sci-fi, they establish the rules and then they stick with it. The rules are the little ships run off of the power from the mothership. That's why it turned back on when it came into orbit. And that's why they weren't like, oh yeah, we know everything about this ship. It's like, no, it literally just turned on for the first time in, 50 years. So I love little details like that where when they're like, what do you know about them? It's like, oh, we know this and that. And you're like, yeah, but that's really not that much because the technology's all been dead. So yeah, I love stuff like that where, it just, it fits. I mean, yeah, Morse code. Yeah. There's other parts where you're suspending a little bit of disbelief.
What's that Morse code connected to? How are they getting the
satellites that don't exist? I don't know. I guess it's just the fact that it's a code that everybody knows because
but how are they sending it out?
You saw them going.
I still remember, speaking of the Morse code, a little bit of a chuckle going out through the audience when the British guys when they're like, "Oh, the Americans, it's about bloody time," and I remember a lot of people in my circle being like, "Why would people be waiting for us anyway?" Like, wouldn't you?
This movie is made by Americans.
Okay,
this movie's
listen.
made by Americans.
I'm
so
sorry,
obvious.
John.
No.
I'm sorry, John. I'm from the Midwest. We all knew what it meant. We're like, yeah, of course the Blimies are waiting for the Americans to do something, just like we saved them in WW2. Okay,
Which makes me think of The Simpsons, where it's like, yeah, well, we saved your ass in World War II. Yeah, well, we saved your ass in World War III. All right, fair enough. I think that there is definitely the aura of American exceptionalism about this movie.
It's called Independence Day.
I know, but it's still one of those things where I almost wonder if part of the reason that it had trouble finding traction with my daughter is because she's very post that era. So it's not going to trigger with her that way.
Totally.
The 90s, we quote unquote, we had won the Cold War, and it's pre 9/11. Like, we felt the audience sitting in there felt like we were invincible. Like this very much tapped into that vein. And I'm not saying that as a positive or a negative. I'm saying the real power of this movie at the time, and all credit to Devlin and Emmerich for figuring this out, was how to speak to the audience that was going to receive it. And just getting through to them and having them say, wow, yeah, and like walk out and be energetic about everything. Like, that is part of your job as a pulp factory popcorn filmmaker, is to throw it to the audience in a way that they're going to receive it. And I think that as a result, Independence Day wound up, in retrospect, getting a little too much static in later years when people revisited it and not understanding that the true talent of Devlin and Emmerich was understanding the audience of the time and getting to them. And still, the international box office was larger still than the domestic, but at the time, domestic was what everybody focused on. And that was the one you were trying to capture, which they did in spades with this movie. And it's all because they knew how to speak to that emotional level of the audience. So
I think the same thing, it's context. I mean, it's the context of when it came out. The same thing as like Star Wars. Like people are like, oh, like, why can't we recreate that magic from 77? It's like, because everyone was tired of just the downward motion of movies and the glum and all of that. This was like, hey, here's some heroes and good guys are good, bad guys are bad, and we win in the end. Like that was new it came at the moment it needed to, and then it made a ton of money. And I think you're absolutely right. We were riding that high of the mid 90s.
Tell me about that money, Darren. Tell me, throw me some
so much
cold
money.
hard cash figures at me.
We got it in $96. We got it in $24. We got all the money. So this movie was made for $75 million, which I almost don't believe, because that sounds like 96. That's nothing.
I got that in my couch.
Yeah, so I spend that on 3 episodes of The Mandalorian. Boom, right there.
Right,
Gone.
there you go.
But so that's around like $150 in 2024 dollars. It made $817 million, almost $1 billion in 96, when money meant something and tickets were cheap. That's like $1.6 billion today.
So you're saying it made a profit?
Oh yes. If any sort of studio that was attached to this was in trouble, they weren't anymore.
I mean, and this was the moment that Roland Emmerich was like, you know what? This was a sci-fi disaster movie, and this made a lot of money. I'm gonna do this until the end of time.
Well, you find something that works, and you do it until they stop paying you for it.
Right? Like this feels like, I mean, we'll probably get to this next week, but this feels like that you can make whatever you want after this. Like you're blank check.
Absolutely, this is a blank check, because, like you said, at the time it was $75 million as the budget, whatever that translates to in 24. Domestic, which I promise the audience, I swear to you from the bottom of my heart, was all that anybody cared about in 1996. It made $306 million plus, meaning that's like quadrupled its budget. Like that is the basic math of that, is that everybody went home with, I mean, they still lost money with creative accounting, as they always do, but everybody else went home happy with that. I mean, this made, as much as we talked about Will Smith was a name and Will Smith was known and Will Smith defined the 90s, this made him a movie star. He walked out of this movie able to do whatever he wanted. Strangely, Jeff Goldblum not afforded the same sort of cachet, which is weird, but okay. But like, he walked out of this, and Will Smith had an ego coming out of this, where I remember when Wild Wild West came out, and everybody said, oh, you're releasing on July 4th weekend again. And I remember him saying at the time, July 4th is my weekend. Understand? That's me. Wow. And then Wild Wild West happened, and it wasn't his weekend anymore. But like, that's insane to quadruple your budget. That's the dream of every studio. And
on a big budget movie, this movie cost a lot to make, and it's all on the screen.
But again, it points us toward where we are now. Spend a lot of money, make a lot of money, and it's not sustainable. This pointed the way for what was going to ruin the industry in future years. Like, it's so funny how prescient behind the scenes this movie is, as much as, on screen.
Since we're talking behind the scenes, Darren, where do you see Mr. Emmerich in this? Like, do you see Universal Soldier Emmerich? Do you see Moon 44 Emmerich? Do you see let me rephrase. Do you see Stargate Emmerich?
Right. No, yeah, it's like, what if it took place on Earth? Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously there's the Roswell thing, which I think is the most Emmerich of things, where it's like very analogous to, the aliens built the pyramids, and then we prove it. It's like, oh, aliens actually went to Area 51. Oh, and then we prove it. So you have a little bit of dichotomy there. I think, like we've mentioned before, he just gets really good performances out of ensembles. Like, he can handle an ensemble cast. He can handle the story. I mean, probably part of it is the fact that as long as you hit your third act, and that's what everyone's talking about when they're leaving the theater, you kind of have a lot of leeway in your beginning. Like, obviously you're hitting it and you're nailing it, but like, that's a long time ago. By the time we get to blowing up the spaceships, a lot of the setup is people aren't even remembering that. So yeah, I think, but he really navigates these three men, these three stories, and weaves it together in a 3-day, like, the timeline of this movie is crazy fast. From July 2nd, boom, in the screen, so you know what day it is. I don't know if the aliens are landing on the international date line or where exactly they were, but yeah, from July.
Eastern Standard Time.
It's America's timeline. It's all that matters.
But he's like, okay, so we drew a line in the sand on July 2nd, and we have to have the little girl say Happy 4th of July to her dad at the end. So make it happen. Fit it in. But
make fireworks happen. Make it.
Yeah. So that's where I see it mostly. I think, we were listing all these amazing actors, and just, it's a very quotable movie. There's quotes coming out your ears from all over, not just, oh, well, Will Smith got all the good lines. It's like, no, like, we quote this movie all the time. There's so many great little pieces, and it's just a fun movie. So yeah, I
think my dad's favorite quote is, what was you didn't think they're actually spending $20,000 on a hammer and $30,000 on a toilet seat, did you? My dad, every single time, he's just like, yep.
I love, like, oh, this is not checkmate. This is not checkmate. Just, oh yeah, there's so many little, or, like the signal or time's up. And, even the Good Morning Dave reference of his, when he boots up his computer, and it's like a HAL 9000, reference.
Speaking of my dad, yeah, he had to explain that reference to me at the time, at 10 years old.
That's true. 1960s, yeah, it's a little later. But no, I'd say that's where I see it. And it's been really fun just watching these movies in order. Like, I'm glad we started with Moon 44, which wasn't that long ago, guys. It really wasn't, which is incredible.
Feels like a long time ago.
It feels like decades ago, and it wasn't even 5 years. It's crazy that he just, right place, right time, right sequence, just each one's making more money than the next. And then he got this, and it just nailed 1996. It really did.
Now, John, you know how a lot of movies nowadays come out with character posters, where, like, you have the main movie poster, and then you have character posters of the actors and their costumes and everything like that. I think if that was a trend back in 96, I would pay good money, third of my paycheck, to have a Judd Hirsch Independence Day character poster.
I will make one. I need to make one. I think that because he definitely has some good moments too. And I think because you would ask Darren about where you see the director, one thing where I will point out where I still see the deficiencies of Roland Emmerich in this movie. And my daughter glommed onto this without any prompting from me as well, was when they wind up in Nevada and they go through that whole, when they go through the canyon chase, I immediately think now of Moon 44. And does that canyon chase make any more sense to me visually than that did? Maybe a little more, but not a lot. It's spectacle, and it moves fast, and it has Will Smith, and so it's better, it's clearer, it's more direct. I understand better where they're going. But she actually said, wait, where are they now? And I said, oh, well, they're in Nevada now, because they were going so fast and they went from LA to Nevada. They're pretty close to each other and everything like that. But
pretty close.
But the child did not get that they were in a whole different state by that point.
Mm.
And so
I thought you were going to go in a different direction with that, where
no.
because like the canyon chases don't make sense in any movie, and the only time I've ever seen that mocked is in Firefly, which is another Adam Baldwin property, where the pilot Wash is going through a canyon and he's going like crazy. He's just like going left and right and up and down. He's just like super intense. And he's like, yeah, we got away. And then the bad guys are just above him. And he's like, oh yeah,
Flying
I forgot they could
straight.
do that.
Right. Then there is, I mean, there are a couple of things as well. Like at the end of it, she says, so this is just Star Wars. I said, yeah, basically, honey. When they're going
everything
in
is just Star
you know,
Wars. I hate that.
I understand that, but I also understand that
it's the hero's journey. That's it's not everything is Star Wars. Everything is the hero's journey.
Well, she saw a lot of Star Wars in the way that they were doing that final run at the, you know, at the
trench
alien
run
ship,
at the alien ship,
and the first shot misses, and then you have the hero show up and do the thing, and
that's just story plot,
was Randy Quaid the hero? Really? Was Randy Quaid the hero?
He's my hero because he's functional. And that's what I aspire to be. And that's what I am every day. So
I thought it was very brave of Randy Quaid to show up on set and just play himself. You know, I think that was really...
Listen, you can character assassinate him all that you want to, but he was born to play this role. That's all I'm going to say. You know, and thank God that they changed it from the way that it originally was, which was...
Please talk about that, because that's insane.
Yeah.
And according to Devlin, it was received well by test audiences, but I would rebut that by saying that if it tests well with audiences, one does not typically tend to change it. But okay, I'll stick with Devlin's story because it's the only one I've heard, that even though it tested well, that Randy Quaid did not get accepted to fly one of the fighter jets and instead showed up at the end in his biplane with a bomb strapped to it and flew in. And audiences loved it when they tested it, but they changed it anyway to show him getting in the jet, and they reshot everything so he was in it. I can tell you that had he been in his biplane with a bomb strapped to it, I would have walked out of this movie laughing hysterically and watched it only to mock it for the rest of time. Like that.
Yeah.
If that made it to the final cut, I would never have given this any truck whatsoever. Like that would have been a deal breaker for me.
I remember seeing that on the Laserdisc edition. My uncle had a Laserdisc player.
Like a deleted scene that you could watch that?
I thought it was, I mean, I may be misremembering this. So like, folks, don't call me a liar or say that I'm wrong. I might be. I could have sworn that it was integrated into the main feature. Seeing the biplane fly up. It could be a false memory. Don't tweet me.
Well, because it changes it, because now it's a suicide mission from the get-go. Like, he knows he's not coming back. And it is such a great moment where he chooses to sacrifice himself in the moment because of the malfunction of the... I mean, that's plot. I mean, we can see where that's coming. But just to talk for a second about... Because we watched a mix of the theatrical and the extended edition. And I will say this for the extended is it gives, I think the biggest difference is it gives a lot more to Randy Quaid. It fleshes out his character a lot more. We get a lot more of him and his kids, and a lot of good moments where I like those moments where he's standing up for his kid. He's being a dad. Like, yeah, he's not the best dad in the world. He's kind of a screw up, but I like all those moments, and it gives an even better payoff when he has that hero's moment in the end. So I will say I do enjoy that.
I think the exact opposite. That was actually I think that's really
better with the theatrical the way it stayed.
Oh, I think the theatrical is way better than some of the extended scenes that are in it, but. I think the reason why I think the theatrical is way better is because of the Randy Quaid scenes are the worst of the worst. And so like listening to you say that is so funny that you took it so differently than me, because like as I'm watching the extended edition, like even when I'm watching the theatrical edition, I was just like, you know what? I could use less of that storyline. I think less of that storyline would make this a stronger movie. And then seeing the extended edition, I'm like, oh, good Lord, they had more. There was actually more on the cutting room floor.
I can honestly say that I've only seen the theatrical edition. I have no desire to see an extended edition because I think that it's a little long even in the theatrical cut.
It is
and
a tad.
the idea that this would go longer than 225, I think 225 is too long for this movie to begin with. And
I think it's like 235. Like it's only like 10 more minutes.
10 minutes of screen time is a lot of screen time.
To be a little pedantic, 9. It's 9 minutes longer.
Okay. But you're totally right. I'm not
Nerd.
just saying, oh, it's only 9 minutes. That doesn't matter. It obviously changes the movie and makes Tristan hate it. But
it goes from 5 stars to 2 stars immediately. Listen, I think the biggest tell for me is that by the time it was over, and I think even all the way back in 96, by the time it was over, I was like, okay, I'd had enough of it. I still see moments that could be cut. I still see where it could be tightened. I see a couple of things where there's sort of an ironic love that I have for it. Because, for instance, even back in 96, and I know full well the suspension of disbelief starts from the opening frame sort of thing. But when you have Air Force One taking off, riding basically a wave of explosion, and the plane isn't even shaking on the inside, really, I'm like, okay, look, I've flown over things where it's like there's a storm 30,000 feet below us, and like the plane's like, I'm like, you couldn't at least like shake the camera a little bit or something.
Listen, we all know, in its cinematic law that you can survive flames. Okay, but you can't survive the actual explosion itself. Like, look at the Millennium Falcon and Jedi. I mean, boom, pops out of the flames.
Hey, now hold on a second here.
Oh, right? I got close
in
to home.
Space.
You
Flames
got
in space.
really close to home. Listen, there's also stuff I remember at the time. You guys might be a little young to remember this, but I remember at the time there were critics that were sort of making fun of the dog jumping into the...
Okay. To be fair, that is also ridiculous. Like, that is the slowest moving fireball I've ever seen. But hey, I think
it's a space fireball.
Thing.
Right.
Well, but that was a test thing of now where they're like the saving of the dog. That is what made that moment.
I will say also that I at least give the movie credit for blowing up all of the idiots that are at the top of the Capitol Records building that are holding signs like, "Welcome aliens." I was like, in 96 and today, I was like, that's right. You got what you deserved, you stupid fools.
In the fireball, we all know heat can't make a right turn and go through a door. All the heat just kept going down that tunnel. None of it turned and fried them alive.
Hey, the light bulb went out. Come on now.
Oh, that's true.
Okay. To be fair to Vivica A. Fox's character, I did like how smart they made her. Like everybody was running forward, and she's like, "No, I got to take cover. I'm gonna, bust down the door here. I'm gonna deal with my kid first, and if I have time, I'm gonna call for the dog." And then, like, even when she like is driving the truck, like looking for the keys, making sure that it's a stick shift, and so she's putting down the clutch first.
She's the most well put together one after the apocalypse happens. Like,
absolutely,
she's ride or die, and she's like, "I got a mission. We're gonna get to El Toro," and we get there, and we're like, "Okay, Plan B."
I think it's time, which is my favorite time, is Lance Reddick time. So where Darren, where would you place Lance Reddick in this major motion picture that defined the summer of 1996?
Oh, man. It's, for one, we're want for choices because there are so many small roles in this that I think Lance would be great at. Okay. Like, I'll just say this, stating, like we always say, we're not saying that the character we're replacing is not good. Instead, we're just saying, I would like to see what Lance Reddick would have done in this. And I actually really want to see a Dr. Oaken, Lance Reddick. Which, bold choice.
Interesting
Bold
choice.
Because again, it's kind of maybe like he's got almost like multiple personalities where like he's talking to the president and he's all straight faced, like clear cut. You're like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. And then he turns to talk to like Jeff, who's not there. He's like his imaginary assistant that doesn't exist because he's been not let out. And so he's like switching back and forth between, talking to Jeff and not talking to Jeff. I don't know. However Lance wants to play it. But I think it comes along late enough in the movie, has a very specific role. Unfortunately, dies. Didn't watch the other movie. But I think, I think Dr. Oaken, as much as I love Brent Spiner, which I love Brent Spiner, but I think that would have been an interesting role for him.
John, same question.
I would have replaced the great Robert Loggia and made him General William Gray, because I think that the scene that you quoted earlier, Darren, where he loses his mind and dresses down the Secretary of Defense would have been great, because he would have just absolutely put the fear of God into the audience and everybody on that set with anger. And so I would put him as General William Gray. No disrespect to Robert Loggia.
That is my answer verbatim. Like, that's the example I was going to give. Like, Lance Reddick would have killed that scene. All right, so now it is time. I'm going to go first here. I'm going to give mercy to Darren because we normally make him go first. But I'm going to go with it. With this film, I like this film. I think it's great. I think it totally holds up. But I was also a kid in the 90s. I was 10 when this came out. I loved it. I think this movie definitely has its flaws. But I think you like oftentimes we talk about movies. Sometimes you got to judge movies for the time that it came out. And oftentimes we'll talk about movies that came out in like the 50s or the 70s or something like that. Like the 1996 was not yesterday. Okay, the 1996 was a while ago. And so sometimes you have to judge a movie in the time that it was given. I think, John, you talked about it in a great way about, about American exceptionalism and just out of the Cold War, pre 9/11. I think this is a 4-star film. I think this is a really great movie that came out in 96. I think it has a lot of great things going for it. I think there's a lot of suspension for disbelief. I think there's a lot of scenes that could be trimmed down, but the greatness of it, I think, makes up for a lot of things. And so I'm going to give this 4 solid stars. I feel like if this wasn't as exciting, if this didn't have as much hype as it did, and say that I just watched this for the first time in 2024, yeah, it would be lower. But like we talked about, this is one of those things where, after the fact, movies came out and did it better because it built on the foundation that Independence Day helped build. So, Darren, what star rating are you giving this?
No, I think that goes really well, Tristan. It's judging it not necessarily today, because we have the benefit of having seen it when it came out. We remember that. I would judge, The Matrix or Episode 1 for the same reasons. Like, I remember that hype. And I'm going to give it a 5. It maybe nostalgia tips it over a little bit. Maybe I'm judging it also compared to Stargate, which I gave a 5. Like, it's not a step down for sure. It's it's the effects. I mean, my God, the effects are so good in this movie. We're still in this ripe time where there's digital compositing and CGI, but there's a lot of model work. The blowing up of the giant, well, not full size, but giant for its time, the White House, like all of that, like that shot was played over and over. Every time you bought a DVD and, and they're wanting to talk about something, they're showing that shot. I mean, could things be trimmed? Could things be, adjusted? Apparently some of us like crop dusting more than others, but yeah, I have to give it a 5. It's, it was one of the first DVDs I bought. I rebought it on Blu-ray recently because I'm like, I need that full surround sound experience in high definition. And it's just a great movie. It's a great popcorn movie. It's a great, action movie. It's great mid-90s. And it's just boom, 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 one after another, Roland's just setting them up and knocking them down.
Now, before we go on to your rating, Darren, you talked about the special effects, which I really love. The miniature work was fantastic. Special effects are great. I want to ask you guys real quick. Ever since I saw this in the theater, something felt off about the special effects. Almost like the special effects, the miniature work was filmed, I should say recorded on video and composited on film. Did anybody else notice that? Like the motion blur was kind of off? Like it was almost at a higher frame rate than 24? Am I alone?
I don't think you're off on that. I think that the effects are caught in that weird spot of they were doing it as cost efficiently as possible, and that there are moments where I think that nowadays I look at it and I'm like, oh, okay, this is where we had hit that pinnacle. Like I understand where it was going. Like, again, I understand where it was going, and I understand where the deficiencies are with this in that sense. I think you're right, Tristan, in that just eyeballing it, that definitely jumped out at me that there were certain scenes where it looked like the model was shot differently than the rest of it. And I'm very used to the tradition, like of it. And there's no explanation for me why it would look that way. Why it would look that way doesn't make sense. But I go back in my brain to an interview with Dean Devlin where he talked about how Lucas came to him and talked about how ILM could do similar stuff and maybe a little more efficiently for him. I'm not quoting verbatim, but I remember Devlin chuckling because it was in that afterglow sort of thing where it's like, we're Independence Day sort of thing. And he looked at the camera and he said, we did okay, George. We figured out how to do it effectively on our own. And I'm like, I don't know that they did in every shot. And I think that your eyes are not lying to you there.
Yeah, I don't recall. I kind of remember or can pick up what you're saying. Maybe a little bit of that is you're obviously adjusting frame rates and speed for the explosion. You're slowing it way, way down. Like, and I know you're not just talking about those shots. Yeah. But yeah, there's some shots where I think like the worst are when the fighters are in the broad daylight attacking. Yep. That is where it
100%.
You know, when the ship is wrapped in mist, there's no atmosphere for them to blend into, and they do not do well in that shot. I'm just enjoying, right when I think it's shuddering a little bit, I just take another scoop of popcorn, shove it in my mouth. So,
right. I mean, that's the thing is that like I'm still blown away by some of the model work that they do. It's really just like a small technical thing that it was just kind of strange. It's like some of the effects work were shot at like 30 frames per second as opposed to 24 frames per second. And that to some people that may not sound like much, but it's like the difference between watching a TV show versus a movie. It was just kind of odd. Like it's still kind of jarring to me. But anyway, John, I want to know your star rating. So Darren gave it 5. I gave it 4. What are you going to lay down on us? What kids' dreams are you going to crush right now?
I don't make any friends with this one. I can say that I've loved this discussion, and obviously I still have a deep, deep abiding affection for this film. I absolutely will never trash this movie. I will always have had a good time with it. I will always affectionately remember seeing it. I remember going to see it for a second time because at the Uptown Theater in DC, they had attached the Star Wars trailer to it. And it was the biggest screen in the area. And I was like, oh, the Star Wars Special Edition trailer's on this? Oh, yeah, I'm going to go back and see this a second time. And then having a good time with it. I think that it's definitely a movie that is better on the big screen. I hope they re-release it for its 30th anniversary. I think that it will be tremendously benefited from being on the big screen, but there are flaws. Runtime's a bit much. There are a couple of things where it pushes credulity a little bit too much here and there. So I wind up with a 3.5, 3.5 stars. Almost. If you force me like Darren to
trending.
That's not that big of a difference.
He's trending up. You got 1, 2, 3, 3.5. So you're going in the right direction.
But I will say that if you force me to say, no, half stars don't exist, Darren doesn't believe in half stars, then I would have rounded down. But as it is, it's a 3.5.
You're right. You have no friends, John.
None whatsoever. And with good reason.
All right, folks, thank you so much for listening. Please go to thenerdparty.com for more. As always, we ask you to take some time and go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. We really want you guys to do that because the more reviews and ratings that you give us, the more we rise up in the ranks and the more that people can find us. And it's easier for people to find us. Tell your friends, tell your folks. We have been getting lots of emails from you guys, and believe it or not, we are integrating those emails of suggestions from Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and everything like that into our list. We have a very long list that's going to take years to tackle, but we are integrating your suggestions. So we really do thank you. We really do appreciate it. And apparently we have a lot of British fans, but we have been rising the ranks in the island of Great Britain. And so we wanted to thank our friends across the pond. And even though this is an episode about Independence Day and about how we chase the redcoats out of our country and continent, we still love you guys very, very much. So thank you for listening. Darren, what are we doing next week?
Well, next week, we're going to be wrapping up the House of Emmerich with his 5th film of the 90s, 1998's Godzilla, here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.